Hello, hi. Thank you for taking your time to listen to my online video presentation. My name is Herlina, and I will present about the review of the history and development of corporate social responsibility. Here is the point of discussions, topic to be covered. First is the introductions, the research method, overview of CSR history and development, discussion, and conclusion. So, what is actually the meaning of corporate social responsibility? Corporate social responsibility, CSR, is a dynamic and evolving concept shaped by historical events, academic discourse, and shifting societal expectations. As early as 1930s and 1940s, societal concerns and debates about CSR roles were evident in the development of CSR. The modern understanding of CSR stems from a combination of theoretical frameworks, research findings, and social influences, which make it relevant for exploration into the future. In my research, I'm using a systematic literature review developed by Fink 2005. This method is defined as a systematic, explicit, comprehensive, and reproducible. So, a significant element of this research is the exploration of CSR, and in particular its evolution and the history. For quality assurance, only peer-reviewed articles and publications published by academic or institutional are considered to be research sources. This study conducted a systematic literature review using databases such as Science Direct, ProQuest, Web of Science, and Google Scholar. I'm using a keyword such as corporate social responsibility, history of corporate social responsibility, and development of corporate social responsibility to gather relevant data. The selection process begins with title, followed by keywords, and abstract, and if necessary, introduction and scope sections in order to determine relevance. Articles are further filtered by journal impact factor and citation count. It is important to note that references within review articles are included after they have been thoroughly screened. Although publications that do not directly address the evolution of CSR in the current era were excluded, these publications are nevertheless noted as having a wider scope and potential as CSR literature. Let's move to the history and development of corporate social responsibility. In the 1950s and the 1960s, corporate social responsibility emerged as a modern concept where scholars began to define corporate social responsibility explicitly, marking a shift towards structured theories on businesses' social impact. The influential 1953 work of Howard Bowen argued that corporations, because of their significant social influence, must align with decisions with societal values, earning him the title of Father of CSR. Amidst economic inflation and labor expectation, authors like Eels 1956 and Seligman 1959 expanded the discussion by addressing moral responsibilities and criticizing corporations for neglecting social obligation. During the 1960s, the civil rights and environmental movement shaped the discourse surrounding CSR, forcing corporations to address issues such as environmental impact, resource depletion, and societal well-being. Rachel Carson and Paul, The Population Bomb, both highlighted concern regarding environmental sustainability and the need for corporate accountability beyond profit making. According to some thinkers, such as Keith Davis and Clarence Walton, corporations must balance their social responsibility with their social impact. While there's one scholar, Friedman, he, however, disagreed with this view, arguing that corporations' sole duty is to maximize their profits. He famously stated that corporate social responsibility detracts from economic growth. CSR theory evolved throughout the decade despite limited implementation beyond philanthropy, as the public pressure on corporations increased due to the decade's social and political movement. As the result of this period, CSR continues to develop strong foundation from balancing profit and societal needs to addressing environmental issues and human rights issues. During the late 1960s, anti-war sentiments, environmental activism, and an increased awareness of societal issues led to a decline in public trust in corporations, especially after the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill. Consequently, these incidents sparked widespread protests, resulting in the first Earth Day in 1970, which mobilized millions of people to demand corporations to take responsibility for the environment. U.S. policy was influenced by Earth Day, which prompted the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, as well as numerous regulatory bodies, including the Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, and Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. By creating this institution, corporations formalized their responsibilities, particularly in regards to environmental and social issues. In the 1970s, publication by the Committee for Economic Development, CED, identified a social contract that encouraged businesses to serve broader social values beyond profit. A major report prepared by the Club of Rome in 1972, The Limits to Growth, emphasized the environmental consequences of unrestrained economic growth during this period. While companies like The Body Shop in 1976 and Ben & Jerry's in 1978 began integrating social responsibility into their business model. Carroll referred to this as the era of managing corporate social responsibility. The boundaries of CSR have been the subject of debate since CSR gained traction. Preston and Post, they argue that CSR should be limited to the immediate effects of their activities, whereas Sethi suggested that CSR should be aligned with the society norms and values. By 1979, Carroll provided a landmark definition of corporate social responsibility, stating that it encompasses economic, legal, ethical, and discretionary expectations. The inclusion of profit and social responsibility as complementary goals helped solidify CSR as a multi-faceted business standard during the 1980s. The evolution of CSR during the 1970s reflected the influence of societal movements and legislation. This set the stage for more structured CSR implementation practices in the following decade. The 1980s saw a shift in the CSR landscape due to the deregulatory agendas of U.S. President Ronald Reagan and British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who both supported free market policies to stimulate economic growth. As a result, government regulatory roles diminish, putting more pressure on the corporate managers to meet stakeholder expectations without a strong state oversight. The focus of CSR research began shifting from decision-making process to stakeholder engagement as a result. During this decade, alternative frameworks for corporate social responsibility also emerged, such as corporate social performance and corporate social responsiveness. Researchers such as Jones argue that CSR should be integrated into the operational decision-making process, paving the way for frameworks to assess and evaluate CSR initiatives. And researchers such as Zolino and Armandi, they propose criteria-based assessment of CSR performance, while Strand, Cochrane, Wood, and Wardick and Children link CSR with a corporate policy and financial performance. Also, during the 1980s were significant global events that highlighted environmental and sustainability concerns, including the creation of the European Commission Environment Directorate, Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986, and the Montreal Protocol, a UN treaty on ozone depletion in 1987. Even though these events weren't directly related to CSR, they indirectly shaped CSR expectations regarding environmental responsibility in particular. Carroll suggests that environmental pollution, employment discrimination, consumer protection, and employee health and safety were the main concern of society during this period. Consequently, business ethics and stakeholder management became integral parts of CSR discussion, setting up CSR as a key contributor to sustainable development in the 1990s. Corporate social responsibility and sustainable development significantly changed during the 1990s as a result of global events and environmental initiatives. There were a number of important developments, including the establishment of the European Environment Agency, the 1992 Rio Summit that resulted in the Rio Declaration, Agenda 21, and the Kyoto Protocol in the 1997. These international agreements mark an increased commitment to environmental responsibility and influence corporate practices globally. CSR gained momentum internationally during the 1990s due to the globalization and the expansion of multinational cooperation into regions with varying regulatory standards. As these corporations navigate competitive markets, maintain their reputation, and meet the expectation of the variety of stakeholders, they face new challenges. During these decades, organizations like Business for Social Responsibility (BSR) who also this period was characterized by the development of several influential theories regarding corporate social responsibility, including Donors, Wood, Corporate Social Performance (CSP) model, 1991, and this model, expanding on Carroll's earlier work, introduced a comprehensive framework defining CSR principle, responsiveness process, and social impact outcomes. Her approach emphasized firms' tangible social performance. The second one is Carroll's CSR pyramid, 1991. Carroll categorized CSR into 4 responsibilities, namely economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic. arguing that companies should balance shareholder interests with broader social obligation. The third one is Berg and Longstone Strategic CSR 1996. They examine CSR potential for value creation and identify 5 strategic dimensions: centrality, specificity, proactivity, voluntarism, and visibility. And the fourth one is the triple bottom line 1994. John Elkington introduced this framework to assess corporate performance across social, environmental, and economic impacts, emphasizing sustainable. This framework set the stage for CSR's evolution, but globalization and multinational cooperation created complexities. By the end of the 1990s, new concepts like stakeholder theory, corporate citizenship, and corporate social performance had surfaced. These concepts broaden CSR horizon, but left its boundaries unclear. This decade underscored a growing expectation for corporations to act as responsible citizens, balancing profit with social and environmental accountability. Sustainable global recognition and a shift to strategic approaches marked the 2000s as a pivotal period for corporate social responsibility, CSR. CSR has evolved into 2 phases over the last decade: to early expansion and recognition of CSR, followed by the development of strategic CSR frameworks influenced by academic research. The milestones are: first, global influence and the UN global impact, and the evolution of CSR in Europe. And the third is the ISO 26000 standard, and the fourth is Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. In the 200s, academic discourse focus on CSR strategic benefits. Scholars highlight CSR as a means of creating value, improving reputation, and enhancing competitive advantage. Secondly, studies and frameworks from the time, including CSR's Europe Enterprise 2020 Manifesto, underscore CSR role in sustainable economic development. They urge companies to adopt CSR as a core part of their business strategy. Overall, CSR has become a central component of corporate strategy since the mid-2000s. The process was supported by international organizations, standardized guidelines, and increasingly recognition of the private sector's roles in addressing social and environmental issues. As the 2000s progress, academic literature on CSR made significant advances, emphasizing the concept's broader implication for value creation and stakeholder engagement, as well as its strategic integration into corporate practices. First is the CSR definition and strategic integration. Second is the stakeholder theory, Friedman and Mars 2022. And the third, corporate sustainability and CSR integration. Fourth is strategic CSR as a competitive necessity. And the fifth, creating shared value. Sixth dimension of strategic CSR. And last is the guidelines for effective CSR practices. According to these contributions from the 2000s, CSR is an integral strategic element of business, aiming not only for compliance, but also to create shared value for businesses and their wider societal context. Since this period, CSR has been viewed as a business strategy that can enhance competitive advantage, sustainability, and societal benefits. A significant evolution of corporate social responsibility occurred in the 2010, especially through the lens of creating shared value, introduced by Porter and Kramer in 2011. CSV was proposed as a shift away from traditional corporate social responsibility, which focused on corporate practices designed to enhance competitiveness and address social concern at the same time. According to Porter and Kramer, CSV should replace CSR, since traditional CSR is predominantly reputational and limited in scope. As a way to generate shared value, they propose three methods: redefining products and markets, increasingly productivity along the value chain, and establishing supportive industry clusters. Throughout 2012 elaborated on this concept by proposing a third generation of CSR that encourages companies to integrate social and global concern into their operational strategies, reflecting a deeper interdependence between the corporate sector and society. A good example of this draft CSR-driven climate change campaign at Vattenfall. By aligning corporate identity with environmental responsibility, social issues could also serve business interests. CSR should be integrated into corporate operation and long-term strategic planning. Chandler and Weather argue in their book Strategic Corporate Social Responsibility and Strategic Corporate Social Responsibility 2016, rather than focusing on maximizing profits, their updated definition emphasizes maximizing value. In other words, they aim to achieve long-term sustainability through a holistic approach that benefits a broad range of stakeholders. In 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) and Paris Agreement were adopted, setting a global framework for sustainable development. Although the SDGs do not mandate corporate compliance, governments implement policies that encourage responsible business practices indirectly. With the EU Directive 2014/95/EU, large firms are now required to report on diversity and non-financial aspects of CSR. In this period, academic interest in CSR increased substantially, with publication focusing primarily on CSR alignment with SDGs. Despite the focus of much post-2015 research on practical application of CSR, it underscored its long-term relevance for aligning business with societal goals. In this decade, CSR has become increasingly integrated into business strategy. The concept of sustainable value creation is integral to the long-term success and identity of a corporation. Though the surge in publication isn't directly related to the Sustainable Development Goals, it suggests the concept remains relevant since 2015, the year where the Paris Agreement urged transformative business practices. Generally speaking, recent research focuses on corporate social responsibility practices and their impact on specific SDG-aligned areas, but this work does not advance the SDGs' concept definition or conceptual development. The purpose of this paper is to provide an historical perspective on the evolution of corporate social responsibility showing how the concept has evolved from a profit-oriented approach to one that emphasizes creating shared value for society. CSR has progressed as a result of both academic insight and changing societal expectation, illustrating that corporate responsibilities and an understanding of CSR has evolved as well. In particular, societal and international events shape CSR in the following ways. First, the 1970s respond to social concern. Second, European strategy and global influence. And the third, shift to strategic CSR and shared value. This example underscores how CSR has been shaped not only by academic contribution, but also by societal and regulatory demands. The paper concludes that CSR evolution aligns with changing social expectation. This is illustrated by pivotal development like Carroll CSR pyramid and European CSR strategy and the integration of shared value principle. Through this evolution, CSR has moved toward a holistic approach, aligning business practices with societal well-being. Through an analysis of an academic understanding of corporate social responsibility, CSR has evolved over time. This presentation and this research contributes to the literature on corporate social responsibility. In my research, the impact of public and international events has been examined in a relation to societal expectation regarding corporate behavior. As a literature review, this research focuses on academic sources that directly address CSR. It also discussed events that influence public expectation regarding corporate behavior. The findings such as a relationship between the societal expectation and how CSR is perceived and implemented, suggesting a venue for future research. CSR literature is lacking research on integration of CSR within core business activities, which may explain why CSR initiatives are often only partially implemented, raising questions about their effectiveness. The purpose of this research is not only to provide theoretical insight, but also to provide practical application. It outlines a framework for exploring ways in which CSR can meet emerging social expectation of generating shared value as a primary goal for businesses. Incorporating CSR with a focus on shared value creation may have practical implication, a topic that have not received much attention to date. Despite the recent surge in CSR publication, RGB Carroll future scenario still largely dominates. As stakeholder engagement increases, ethically conscious consumers become more influential, and non-governmental organizations (NGOs) gain sophistication. Carroll predicts a growing role for employees in driving corporate social responsibility. Moreover, he predicted that global supply chains would become more involved in CSR activities. Carroll's outlook suggests that CSR impact will be limited in the transformational sense despite its continued transactional growth. Though CSR remains relevant and gaining ground, emerging frameworks and concepts may have an impact on its global expansion and the public interest in the long run. Corporate sustainability, corporate social performance, creation of shared value, corporate citizenship, and environmental, social, and governance criteria may gradually shift attention from traditional CSR toward these competing and complementary ideas. As Carroll 2021 pointed out, these frameworks are interwoven and already incorporated into CSR, a point often overlooked by the discussion. The future of corporate social responsibility will also require consideration of technological advancement, particularly the role of digitalization and artificial intelligence. Companies should be challenged to align sustainability, shared value, and redefine corporate purpose with their cooperation within a socially responsible framework, aiming to benefit society as a whole. Thank you.